I want to tell you a gewaltige Maisa. It's a story that happened in Europe a number of years ago, but it's a story that happens in every person's life. There's a Yid, his name is Reb Moshe Erlanger. He's a Jew from Eretz Yisrael. And he was on business. He was on business in Europe. There was a problem with the weather and the flights were delayed. And he could not make it in time to Ben Gurion Airport in Tel Aviv to land in Eretz Yisrael in time for Yom Kippur. The airport closes before Yom Kippur in Eretz Yisrael, and they had to land in Germany. He landed in Frankfurt, Germany, and he realized he has to spend Yom Kippur in Frankfurt. He needed a hotel, so the airline booked him a hotel that would be walking distance to the great synagogue of Frankfurt. He wasn't ready to be Yom Kippur in Germany. He was planning to be Yom Kippur in Eretz Yisrael in the Holy Land. And it was hard for him. 25 years, you know when you have a shul that you really love, and sometimes you have a shul that you really don't love, but you know when you have a shul that you really, really love, you love the chazan, imagine, you love the Bal Tfilah, you love even the rabbi. And this shul, this Reb Moshe had such a shul. And now he doesn't have it. He loved the nigunim, he loved the davening, he loved the chevra. And now he's in Germany, in Frankfurt. But that's where the hashgacha brought him. He also didn't have clothes for Yom Kippur. So he eats the little tuna or sardines that he had for the Suda Mafsekas. And he goes to shul. He had just had his regular weekday clothes. He had a talis, he didn't have a kittel. He had slippers, he didn't have a machzer. He comes into the Frankfurt Great Synagogue before Kol Nidre, before sunset. It was a nice walking distance from the hotel to the shul, but he could make it to there and back. And he walks into the shul. The Great Synagogue of Frankfurt was destroyed by the Nazis, one of the most beautiful shuls in Europe. But in 1946, they already renovated it and decorated it, rededicated it so that Jews could daven there. It has close to 2,000 or 3,000 seats. Moshe walks into the shul in Frankfurt. Beautiful, splendid. But it's for Germany, so it's a little cold, you know. It's a little cold. It's packed. It's Yom Kippur night. The Olam comes. The Gabbai comes over to him. Says, Shalom Aleichem, Favana Kim Tayid. Where do you come from? So I come from Eretz Yisrael. I got stuck here. I'm away from my family, away from my community. You see, I'm not dressed for the occasion. He says, don't worry, we'll take care of you. He brings him a kittel, brings him a machzer, gives him a nice seat to sit down. And he sits down in shul. Rabbi Yehuda Halevi says, Ani b'mayre v'libi b'mizrach. I'm in the west, my heart is in the east. He was in Germany, but his heart was with his family, with his community. It was difficult to be Yom Kippur away. Chazan gets up. Al das hamokoim ve'al das hakol b'yeshiva shel mayla b'yeshiva shel mata no matirim lispal lemo vayonim. Night of Yom Kippur, all the mechitzas, all the walls between Klal Yisrael are obliterated, and those Jews who live with Yom Kippur a whole year, the mechitzas are always obliterated. The Chazan starts Kol Nidrei. Hi, Kol Nidrei. Oy, 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 Kol Nidrei. Every Jew, the heart is moved by the Kol Nidrei melody. But Reb Moshe felt that there was something different. The Chazan broke down sobbing as he began to sing Kol Nidrei. And with each time he repeated Kol Nidrei, his voice became so much more heartfelt. It stirred him to the core. Such a display of emotion, of his srakshas, of his slavos by Kol Nidrei he never heard in his life. Finishes Kol Nidrei, Shechiyanu v'kimanu v'giyanu l'zman hazeh, the David Ma'ariv finishes. Moshe goes over to the Bal Tefillah, to the cantor, to the Chazan, and he thanks him for such a beautiful davening. And he says, you have to answer my question. I didn't know that in Frankfurt I'm going to hear the most emotional Kol Nidrei I ever heard in my life. Me'efa baso mama secha. Where, what, when, what were you thinking during Kol Nidrei? Basa geshen, what were you crying for? Something happened to your family, chas v'shalom? Is there some crisis in your life? Is there something that you associate with this moment? The man looks at him and he says, not many people ask me the question, but since you asked, talk about asking, you have to ask. Since you asked, you deserve an answer. And let me tell you, it was worth getting stuck in Frankfurt to be able to hear the Maisa, to be able to hear the story. My name is Tzaddik Greenwald. They call me Tzaddik. I've been the Chazan in Frankfurt for quite a few years, son of Holocaust survivors. To come to Frankfurt Yom Kippur and to daven here, I feel to be a great privilege. The very city, the very country from which the greatest hatred and venom came out of the Jewish people, the people that decimated a third of our nation 75 years ago, to be able to daven in front of 2,000 Jews in the soil of Frankfurt, of this cursed country, to be able to say together, Shechiyanu v'kimanu v'giyanu l'zman hazeh, to be able to say v'yeda kol pol kiyata piyaltoi, to be able to say u'bechein tein kavod li'amecha tehila li'reyecha v'sikvatoiva l'dershecha u'pischin pel ha'meyachel imloch tein kavod li'amecha. The nation that has been hounded and hunted down. As an Auschwitz survivor once told me, he says, Rabbi Jacobson, he said, you and your children treat cockroaches, mosquitoes with more dignity, with more respect than we were treated. In Auschwitz, he was one of Mengele's Chevra. Those were his words to me. You treat a mosquito with more dignity. Is to come back to Frankfurt and to say Tein Kavod Li'amecha is awe-inspiring for me. And he says, it's already worth it. I come to Frankfurt, I daven, it's an incredible experience. One year, Yom Kippur was over. Screamed Ashma Yisrael, Baruch Shem Koid Malchus Elolam Vod, Hashem Hu Elokim, Hashem Hu Elokim, Hashem Hu Elokim 7 times. Blew the shofar, we said Lashon Haba B'Yerushalayim. And you know, some Jews after Ne'ilah get a little hungry. Present company excluded. But some Jews get a little hungry and they do up Sashnela Ma'ariv. Fast Ma'ariv, because it's the first mitzvah of the year after Yom Kippur. The first mitzvah is the Chmairev, that's why they chop it very fast. Chatoy v'echel, chatoy v'shti. Finishes Ma'ariv, he says, be honest, I was starving. And more than starving, I was thirsty. Ich hab gechazen the whole Yom Kippur, Kol Nidrei Shacharis, My voice was parched, it was dry. I was just yearning for a cup of water. Everybody left the shul. You know, the chazan sometimes leaves the last. I fold up my talis, I fold up my kittel, I put it away for another year. I remove my cantorial uniform that they still wear in Frankfurt. The front door is closed, the lights are off. Even the janitor left already. There's a side exit door. I go out, Mitzvah Yom Kippur, from the side exit door, the Tzaddik says. I'm really exhausted. Ausgemutscht. I'm looking forward to go to my Talmayo room and have a meal. Leichechol besimcha lachmecha, as the Baskel comes out. I don't know how many of you have been to Frankfurt, but the synagogue, the shul, is huge and beautiful, something special, splendid. The old European architecture from before the war. And the gates, the gates are humongous, protecting the entrance to the front of the shul. I come out from the side door, I walk by the gates, and suddenly Reb Tzaddik says, I see a Jew. He must look 60 or so. He has a white silk yarmulke. On top of his head you could see it's not the makom kavua of the yarmulke. You could see he just put it on a few minutes ago. You know, you see the fit. And he's standing by the gate and he's looking and he's perplexed. And he sees me. He has a heavy Russian accent. You can hear the accent, and he asks me a question with a mix of German and Yiddish. The question is, Farvos seinen die Teuerin von der Schul verschlossen? Why are the gates of the shul locked? I look at him. Farvos seinen die Teuerin verschlossen? Why are the gates locked? Is heit ba nacht nicht the nacht was man sucht kol nidre? Is tonight not the night that we say kol nidre? Reb Tzaddik says, I didn't have a heart to answer. I was quiet. He says, Bitte, entfer mich. Please, answer me. Heit ba nacht sucht man nicht kol nidre? Don't you say kol nidre tonight? Why is this shul locked? Am I the only one here tonight? We are all the Jews. He's pleading for an answer. So Reb Tzaddik says to him, Kol nidre is given nechten banacht. Tonight is the night after Yom Kippur. Last night was Yom Kippur. Last night the gates were open. Tonight the gates are closed. I'm so sorry you came one day late for Kol nidre. He says, the Jew looks at me and he literally breaks down, starts sobbing like a baby, and this is what he says. I never ever missed a Kol nidre in my life. My parents were both survivors of the Holocaust, Russian Jews. They remained in Eastern Europe after the war, but they drifted away from Yiddishkeit. One thing they kept, every Yom Kippur they observed, and every single Yom Kippur my father, not a religious Jew, came to shul. Before he died, he looked at me and he said, my dear son, how do you know that you're a Jew? From wanneer wees dat du bist a Yid? How do you know you're a Jew? That Yom Kippur you come to shul for Kol nidre. And every single year I followed my father's will and I came to shul. I never ever missed a Kol nidre. This is the first Yom Kippur I missed. And Tzaddik says, I'm looking at a 60-year-old Jew with a white silk yarmulke on his head, crying like a baby and saying, it means I'm not part of the Jewish people anymore. The connection has just been severed because my father told me this is what it means that you're part of the Jewish people. The chain of Judaism stopped and will not continue. And he's standing there and crying. And the Tzaddik Greenwald, the Chazan, who's on the way to his hotel room to eat Mitzvah Yom Kippur, a nice meal, you know the feeling, Mitzvah Yom Kippur, I don't have to describe it to this crowd. Says to Reb Moshe, says, at that moment, I knew exactly what I have to do. I looked at the Jew and I said, Ich bin the Chazan from the Frankfurter Shul. I am the cantor of the great synagogue of Frankfurt. Was nicht verfällt, kein Kol Nidrei. You didn't miss Kol Nidrei, komm mit mir. Come with me to the Shul. Und wir wollen singen Kol Nidrei zusammen und do Kol Nidrei together. He takes him into Shul. It's pitch black, you know, a Shul in Germany, pitch black. It's not 1840. There's always either renovation or somebody drinking soup or somebody doing a minyan. Frankfurt doesn't work that way. So there's Satmans and there's Vizhnitz, so there's the Shtiblach and Zichron Moshe, and it's not Or Chaim. It's pitch dark. He puts on a little light in the front, Mizal Kenan Epizan. He brings this Jew to the front. He gives him a kittel, he gives him a talis, he gives him a machzor with a Russian translation, and he puts him right near him. Reb Tzaddik goes to the stender, and he starts, And Reb Tzaddik says, I have to be honest with you. He says, I've been doing Kol Nidrei for years, but usually, who's there? 2,000 people are sitting. And as much as I'm thinking about Yom Kippur, and as much as I'm thinking about Hashem, and as much as I'm thinking about the words, I'm also thinking about, I want the 2,000 people to like me. Those of you here who are Bali Tfilah, Chazanim Yoni, the trachst amal azoi. In Uman. Was trachst? Those of you who are speakers, rabbis, singers, Chazanim, Bali Tfilah, no. Even those of us who are idealistic people. But fart, it's 2,000 people. I want to impress the crowd. I want they should like it. I want they should like me. They say there was a chazan in New Jersey once, Rosh Hashanah. He finished davening, the president of the shul comes over to him and says, you were horrible. The worst chazan we ever had in the history. Never again. He comes home, tells his wife, I'm not making kiddush. She says, why? He says, I'm fasting. He says, you fasting? What do you have with fasting? You've been eating your whole life. You can't fool your wife. So he tells her the truth. He says, I'm in a bad mood. I finished davening. The president of the shul comes over to me and tells me I was the worst, never again. You know, a Jewish wife always knows the right thing to tell her husband, to boost his self-confidence, to make him feel like a man, like a king. She always has the right oisis, the right way, the right mahalachim. Bini Yisrael, this is part of the Bini Yisrael. She looks at her husband, she says, the president. An idiot, what does he know? He was just repeating what the whole shul says. So Reb Tzadok says, I have to be honest with you. It's Yom Kippur, it's the holiest day of the year, but I'm singing for the crowds. I'm singing for the crowds. He says, but this Yom Kippur, there was no crowds. It wasn't even Yom Kippur. I couldn't even tell myself it was Yom Kippur. It wasn't Yom Kippur. There was no crowd. There was no audience. There was nothing there. Nobody was looking. There was no prophet. There was no president. There was no board of directors. There was no gabbai. There was no shamish. There was no millionaire. There was nobody there. It was me and an old Russian Jew sitting there. Didn't even know what Kol Nidre is. Didn't even know what Yom Kippur is. Couldn't even get the day right. So who was I singing Kol Nidre with? I was singing Kol Nidre, just me and Hashem and a Jewish soul. And the whole shul was empty. There were 2,000 empty seats, pitch dark. And he says, I have to tell you, at that moment, I felt all of Jewish history present in the shul. I felt this Jew's ancestors all the way back to Avraham Avinu. I felt all my ancestors back to Maimon Har Sinai. I felt all the Jews of Frankfurt, Medoira, Doiris, all the neshamas that were there. I felt that I was talking to the Shechina himself, saying Kol Nidre. I felt that it was so genuine, it was so real. There was no incentives, no ulterior motives. I just started to cry. This Jew started to cry, and we said Kol Nidre 3 times. Then I said, it's Ma'ariv, it's Fort B'tzai Yom Kippur, you still gotta say Shema. I said the Shema with him. We spent a few minutes davening to Hashem, and we finished. The Jew takes off his kit till he comes over to me and he says, I will forever be grateful to you for helping me know that I'm still part of the Jewish people. He gives me a hug. So I can't thank you enough for what you did for me. And we walk out together from the side door, close the door, he goes home, and I go home to break my fast. Just 2 years later, I come back to shul. Yom Kippur at night, a Jew comes over to me after davening and he says, you remember me? I take a look, I said, of course I remember you. It was you and I who did our own Kol Nidre. And the Jew says, you'll never ever know what you did for me. You gave me back my soul. You gave me back my Jewish soul. I can't thank you enough. And we hugged again and he left shul. Reb Tzadok says, every year when I get up here by the Stender for Kol Nidre, there's 2,000 people in the audience. But I go back to that Kol Nidre B'tzai Yom Kippur, and it's only me and God and this Jew alone. And his simplicity, his unsophisticated oneness, the pshittus von Ayid, the pshittus von Apintelayid, it just touches me so deeply. That's what triggers my emotions every Kol Nidre.